The most expensive bag in the world, the most expensive perfume in the world, the most expensive champagne in the world, all in the hands of a single man. Bernard Arnault, net worth around $180 billion, the second richest person on the planet, the undisputed emperor of the luxury world. His empire, LVMH, manages more than 70 of the most desired brands in the world. Louis Vuitton, Dior, Moet and Chandon, Tiffany and Company, Bulgari, the list goes on and on. But this man did not build this empire. This empire was not an inheritance. It was not old family money. This empire was founded by a 13-year-old boy who was illiterate, homeless, slept in the woods, and walked more than 360 kilometers with nothing but the clothes on his back and a pure desire to survive. That boy's name was Louis Vuitton. And before this story ends, you will learn two things. First, how what this boy created turned into the most counterfeited luxury product in history. Second, how a man named Bernard Arnault used it to wrench that brand away from the hands of the family that brought it into existence. Louis Vuitton was born on August 4th, 1821, in Angers, a tiny village hidden in the Jura Mountains of eastern France. No water, no electricity, no opportunity, just cold, windy winters, harsh labor, and the kind of poverty that breaks people before their lives even begin. Louis lost his mother when he was only 10 years old. As if that weren't enough, his father remarried, and Louis's stepmother was, by all accounts, an absolute nightmare. She was cold and manipulative. She didn't even bother to hide the fact that Louis was unwanted in that house. So, at 13 years old, in the pitch black of night, Louis made a decision that would change the course of history. He ran away from home, no money, no map, no plan. Just Paris, a city he had only heard of, and an open road of 360 kilometers stretching between him and the city. Now think about this for a second. You are 13 years old. You cannot read. You cannot write. You have nothing. And in 19th century France, all alone, you decide to walk to one of the biggest cities in the world. Louis Vuitton walked for 3 whole years. He slept under trees. He worked odd jobs like metalworking, masonry, woodcutting, and carpentry in exchange for a few bites of food. He didn't rush. He didn't have the luxury to rush anyway. He scraped through every single kilometer by his fingernails. When he finally arrived in Paris in 1837, he was 16 years old, half starved, half naked, and completely alone in a city full of strangers. But he was alive, and he was angry. That anger, that deep-seated, unyielding hunger, blended with poverty and the struggle to survive, would be the driving force behind everything that happened next. Louis found a job as an apprentice under Monsieur Maréchal, one of Paris's respected trunk makers and packagers, laitier emballeur. It might not sound glamorous, but it was. In the 1800s, wealthy aristocrats and members of royalty carried everything with them when they traveled: dresses, silverware, perfumes, artwork. And they needed someone they could trust implicitly to pack, protect, and transport these belongings without a single piece being damaged. Louis had the hands of a craftsman and the obsessive meticulousness of a perfectionist. He was extraordinary at his job. He was so extraordinary that by 1851, he was personally hired as the official trunk maker and packer for Empress Eugénie, the wife of Emperor Napoleon III of France. Let that sink in. That homeless, illiterate boy from the mountains was now packing the personal luggage of the most powerful woman in France. However, Louis was not content with just serving the elite. He wanted to completely change the way things worked. In the mid-1850s, luggage design was in a terrible state. Trunks were made of heavy leather and had dome-shaped, rounded lids so that rainwater would run off. They looked grand, but it was impossible to stack them on top of each other. You couldn't stack the luggage. This meant that every carriage, every ship, and every train car became inefficient, chaotic, and expensive to load. In 1854, Louis opened his own workshop in Paris and did something no one else had thought of before. He flattened the lid. Instead of heavy leather, he used a lightweight, waterproof gray Trianon canvas fabric. Flat-topped, stackable, durable, elegant. In hindsight, it sounds so simple. But that is how vision always looks after it's already been done. These trunks became an immediate, hysterical obsession among the Parisian bourgeoisie. They were lighter. They were sturdier. You could fit twice as many trunks into a carriage, Moreover, they smelled of wealth, clean, precise, and modern. Orders began to pour in. Within a few years, Louis Vuitton was no longer just a craftsman, he was now a brand. And then everything he built burned down in a single night. If you're interested in corporate stories filled with success and betrayal like this, you can support us by subscribing to the channel and liking the video. Because Louis's story didn't end here. In 1870, the Franco-Prussian War broke out. Prussian forces besieged Paris, and this devastating siege lasted for months. The city surrendered to chaos, shops were looted, windows were smashed. Everything Louis had built, his workshop, his stock, his reputation, was obliterated. If Louis had been a weak man, he would have walked away from it all. But he was a man who, at just 13 years old, had walked 360 kilometers with nothing. You cannot defeat someone who has nothing to lose. He relocated his brand from its old location to a much more luxurious area, Asnières-sur-Seine, a prestigious suburb near Paris, and rebuilt by setting up a specialized workshop there. In a neighborhood where aristocrats lived, he didn't just rebuild a ruined business, he completely repositioned the brand from a craftsman to a luxury consumer institution. Louis died in 1892, but before handing the business over to his son, Georges Vuitton, the brand was established on solid foundations. Right after his father's death, Georges faced a major crisis. The brand was being counterfeited everywhere. The market was flooded with fake trunks, cheap imitations that shattered the perception of premium quality. In 1896, Georges made a move that would shape the next 130 years of the brand. By blending his father's initials with a geometric canvas pattern, he created the LV monogram and registered it as a weapon against counterfeiters. He also invented a tumbler lock system, a lock so complex that thieves couldn't pick it, and one that could be customized so a customer could open every single trunk in their collection with a single key. A family's genius, a family's obsession with perfection. And all of this was about to be taken from them. This is a chapter that Louis Vuitton does not want you to know. World War II, the fall of France, and the Nazi occupation of Paris. Most luxury brands were faced with a choice: resist, shut down, or collaborate. Under the management of Gaston Louis Vuitton, representing the third generation of the family, Louis Vuitton chose to collaborate with the Nazis. While other brands halted their operations, LV opened a store in Vichy, the headquarters of France's Nazi puppet government. The store was operated right inside the building where Marshal Pétain ran his regime, the Hôtel du Parc. During this time, they made a fortune. While the rest of France was starving and resisting, they sold luxury goods to Nazi officers and collaborators. Years later, when historians began digging into this past, the company's response was extraordinary to the point of arrogance. They claimed that all records between 1930 and 1945 were destroyed in a fire. How convenient, right? This chapter remained largely buried until journalist Stéphanie Bonvicini's book Louis Vuitton, A French Saga, published in 2004, exposed this collaboration in all its naked truth. The family could not dispute the book's core findings. While many brands perished in the war, Louis Vuitton grew even bigger. The Vuitton family seemed untouchable, until the betrayal arrived. By the 1980s, the fourth generation of the Vuitton family, led by Henri Racamier, who had married into the family, had taken the company to incredible heights. Racamier was sharp-witted, aggressive, and ambitious. He took the company public and organized a massive merger with champagne and cognac giant Moet Hennessy to form the conglomerate we know today as LVMH. However, power struggles were igniting within the new empire. Racamier and the chairman of Moet Hennessy could not agree on anything. The board of directors was paralyzed. The war for control was poisoning the entire mechanism. So Racamier made a decision that he would regret for the rest of his life. To tilt the balance of power in his favor, he invited an outsider inside. A real estate developer, a deal maker, a man known for his ruthless efficiency and cold-blooded strategies. His name was Bernard Arnault. Racamier thought he was bringing in an ally. In reality, he had invited a predator inside. Arnault moved swiftly and silently, just like sharks always do. While appearing to collaborate with Racamier, he was secretly accumulating shares from the stock market on the side, step by step, silently, methodically. Before anyone could realize what was happening, Arnault had taken control of 43% of LVMH. The legal battles were fierce. The courtrooms were brutal. The maneuvers executed were a complete textbook lesson in corporate warfare. Arnault won. The man who built LVMH, Henri Rassimier, was kicked out of his own company. The Vuitton family had been purged. Their name remained. Their heritage remained. But the keys to the kingdom, they handed them over to Arnault with their own hands. This is where we are today. Bernard Arnault took that money-printing machine built by Louis Vuitton and used it to completely swallow the luxury world. More than 70 brands under a single roof. Dior, Givenchy, Fendi, Tag Heuer, Dom Perignon, Sephora, and Tiffany & Company acquired in 2021 for $15.8 billion, the largest acquisition in luxury history. The name of that boy who used to sleep in the woods now adorns the storefronts of the most expensive streets in every major city in the world. And the irony here is profound. A brand founded by a boy who had nothing is now the global symbol of wealth, and almost certainly, it is the most counterfeited luxury brand in the world. The exact same problem that Georges Vuitton fought against in 1896 is still going on at full speed today, 130 years later. They sue counterfeiters with absolute predatoriness. Thousands of lawsuits are filed every year. At one point, they launched a public, fierce legal battle against the streetwear brand Supreme for copyright infringement. And then, years later, when the numbers made sense, they collaborated with that very same Supreme. A $600 Supreme X Louis Vuitton hoodie sold out within minutes, because at the end of the day, it is never a matter of principle, it is only a matter of power. Louis Vuitton walked 360 kilometers through woods and freezing rivers because he had nothing to lose. His family defended the brand he built out of pure passion and the survival instinct for generations, fought imitations, and resurrected it from its ashes after the war. In a single boardroom, with a single betrayal, everything vanished. This is not a story about bags. This is a story about how the world actually works. Power does not always go to the person who builds the empire. Sometimes power goes to the person who has the courage to take it. So next time you see that LV monogram, that beautiful, iconic pattern that Georges Vuitton designed as a weapon against thieves, ask yourself this: is this bag a symbol of craftsmanship, survival, and heritage? Or is it the world's most expensive token, reminding you that loyalty is a liability in business and that not even your own name is safe?